Hey everybody, Questwise here, and today I want to talk about one of the games that is my all-time favorite games to run. In not only because I really enjoy the rule mechanics, but also because I just really love this game. I love the way how flexible it is. I love the variety of stuff you can get from this game. I love also that you're playing just regular humans and how you have to sort of be intelligent in your approach to things because there's not going to be a lot of sort of might of arms and or magic that's going to save your day. And that is Call of Cthulhu. And what I wanted to do today is I wanted to show you a little bit of how I create adventures for Call of Cthulhu. There's a lot of published adventures out there and campaign settings, and they're all really, really awesome. But sometimes I want something a little bit unique, but I also want to draw from something very familiar. And I want to show you how I do that today, or at least how I've done it for a current adventure that I'm sort of putting together, and how I'm utilizing some other items, another game in the Call of Cthulhu universe to do such a thing. So I am drawing upon the Arkham Horror LCG card game from Fantasy Flight Games. If you haven't checked this out, if you have not checked out Arkham Horror LCG, I highly recommend that you do. If you are a Call of Cthulhu fan, if you're a Lovecraft fan, if you're a card game fan, this game is spectacular. Not only is it just beautifully rendered, all the artwork and the cards and everything and the way it flows together is absolutely beautiful. I would love to be able to sit down with the designers of this someday and just be like, okay, tell me how you did this. Because the storylines and everything in it works so well together. I have not ever played another LCG or any card game ever, in my opinion, that has worked as well as the Arkham Horror LCG from Fantasy Flight Games. But we're not here to talk about that today. We're talking about a Call of Cthulhu tabletop adventure and how I'm going to use the Dunwich Legacy expansion for Arkham Horror to create an adventure or the beginning of a campaign for the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game. How I've done that is I've taken the story that starts off this campaign, the Dunwich Legacy, okay? And I've read through it, and because I know that some of my players will probably also be players of the LCG, I wanted to put my own particular twist in this. Now, I'm not trying to do a verbatim sort of stealing from the card game and putting it to the role-playing game, which you absolutely could. But I wanted to add some variety to it. And the way I run games is I'm very much a player-driven sort of game master. In that I like to set up situations, adventures, and then if I'm planning on doing a campaign, I really feed off of what the character players are doing and saying to help me build future adventures, future investigations. And that's what I want to do with this today. I want to show you how I approach this. So we start off with, we're in Miskatonic University. We meet with Dr. Henry Armitage, right? He is the head librarian of Miskatonic University. And he calls the investigators together to talk about something he's very, very worried about. And that is that he is looking for Dr. Francis Morgan, who's the professor of archaeology, and Professor Warren Rice, who is the professor of languages. Both have gone missing, and he's very worried, excuse me, because of something that they were working on or some kind of project that they were looking into, that he is extremely worried about them disappearing and not returning any of his messages. So what I've done is I've taken that core idea and I've built upon that. So I'm actually using some of the cards from the card game itself. So for instance, I have Professor Warren Rice here, right? And I'm going to use these at the table, not for the text on them, not for any of that kind of stuff, but just as a marker so that when the players are talking about what they're going to be doing, what they're going to be investigating, they have kind of a picture to put behind the name, right? This is Professor Warren Rice. This is the guy that they're looking for. Now, there's several locations throughout Miskatonic University where Warren could be, or Francis could be as well too. And so I've borrowed some of those as well too. Some of these cards, and I'm going to lay these out as sort of a map of Miskatonic University. So the players, when they're deciding to go someplace, they'll probably put a little token on that. So I have quite a few. There's 6 to 8 locations, I think. One of them being Orne Library. We've got the Humanities Building, right? We got the Miskatonic Quad, right? So this is probably where they'll start. It's sort of the center of where they're going to start their investigation. But they're given a few clues, and then beyond that, I've changed the adventure up slightly in that I wanted to, again, make it different, make it my own, but also give the players a chance to sort of build the adventure the way that they want to see it. I want to see what they're investigating, who they're investigating, at what time they're doing so. And for me, that will help me build the rest of this campaign, because I feel like this is one of those adventures that, even though they might solve the mystery of where these two professors are and what has happened to them, it's gonna open up a whole new can of worms, right? It's gonna answer, or it's gonna bring up a whole lot of questions that need answers. So I'm going to give the players this sort of setup of Dr. Henry Armitage, who's worried about these folks, and gives them some information on locations they might want to investigate, and then some clues, some leads for them to follow. So, for instance, Warren Rice was last seen working at the Humanities Building late at night. And Dr. Francis Morgan was last seen gambling at the Clover Club Speakeasy downtown. So they've got a couple of different locations that they can go. They've got a couple of different things that they can investigate. And I've also thrown in, one of the coolest things about this game is that sometimes if you get it's kind of stuck for what you need to do, there's a sort of an NPC that they throw into the card game, right? And that's Jazz Mulligan. He's the head janitor. He knows the university inside and out. He knows everything. He's seen every corner of every building, and thus he can be helpful to the players as they're looking for things. This would be especially helpful because a lot of times the players themselves, not the characters will probably have ties to Miskatonic University, but the players themselves probably don't know much about the university, or what the buildings are like, or how they're situated, or who's coming and going from these different locations. Jazz Mulligan, who's just an NPC card in the card game who helps the characters, sort of points them towards certain things, will be an NPC that will be helping them in the role-playing game, in that that's somebody that they can go back to besides Dr. Armitage to find out what they should do next. If they get into a bind, hey, is there anything in the science building that we need to know about? Those kinds of things, right? Little things, questions that they can actually ask me via the NPC where to find certain things. The biggest question that I leave unanswered with this is, what is really going on here? And I know in the card game what happens. I've played that campaign solo several times with different investigators. So I know what the storyline is of that. But I don't want to use that storyline. What I want to do is I want the players to look at some clues. So, for instance, Dr. Francis Morgan is a professor of archaeology. Okay, if he's gone missing, if he's in trouble, what about archaeology really fits into this vibe of what's going on here? And he's been working with Warren Rice. They're both missing. We assume that they've been working together. But Warren is a professor of linguistics. So what do we have going on here, right? The question is, we have a linguistics professor and an archaeology professor. And if they've both gone missing together and they've been working together, we are assuming, what is it that they're working on? What is it they're looking for? What is it that they've uncovered, maybe? So I've changed up some things a little bit. And this is also not to give any spoilers to the card game as well. And like I said, players at my table have maybe already played this, the LCG adventure, so I want to change it up for them a little bit too. I'm just using the basics to start a sort of ongoing campaign. I've chosen a formless spawn as the big bad creature that they'll be sort of facing in this sort of part of the arc of the story, this part of the adventure. And to me, from my perspective, I was thinking that the two professors had maybe discovered or were given or had bought a case, a crate, a sarcophagus of something that was covered in strange languages or some kind of ancient languages. So now we have a tie to archaeology and we have a tie to linguistics. And maybe they had inadvertently triggered something by reading these inscriptions or opening this vault in some way that creates this formless spawn. So what I did is I sat down with the core rule book, the Call of Cthulhu rule book, and I kind of dug through the different creatures and the different ideas of like, okay, what was it? What maybe could they have pulled here? And I didn't think it was something that they probably had summoned, something that they had done kind of thing, because there wasn't really anything sort of magical in the setup to the adventure. So I went with the idea that they had found or had bought or had been given this sort of item, and that trapped inside of it was this formless spawn, which are really, really great creatures. They are creatures that can be extremely deadly unless dealt with in such a certain manner. And again, I don't want to go into too much detail because if anybody's watching this actually plays in the campaign, I don't want to give them too much information on what could happen. But that's how I kind of go about setting up at least this campaign. And I've done this for other games as well too. I've talked in the past about how I've done like certain Advanced Dungeons and Dragons 2nd edition games using the cards from the 90s as well too, to get some inspiration for building adventures and sort of building off that kind of stuff. So I like to look for outside sources that I can use to sort of build adventures. And for this particular adventure, or beginning of a campaign starter, I guess I would say, I have decided to use the LCG of Arkham Horror from Fantasy Flight and kind of blend the two, but also kind of keeping it original and using my own ideas to sort of pull out some new directions for the game to go. So I just wanted to share that with you today. If it's anything that you might be able to glean some little bit of stuff from this, get some ideas on maybe how to jumpstart a campaign or how to set up a one-shot adventure even, and you're just sort of at a loss for some ideas. But until next time, I'm Questwise, and I am out. Hey there, fellow questing knights. If you're looking to collect vintage RPGs or would like to start and you don't know where to go, or if you're looking for a supplement to fill in that hole in your collection, I highly recommend Wayne's Books. Yeah, that's right. Wayne's Books, since 2002, have sold thousands of vintage RPGs. I highly recommend them. I've used them in the past, and I have nothing but 100% satisfaction with their service. So if you get a chance, swing on over to Wayne's Books and pick up everything you'll need vintage RPG-wise. I'm Questwise, and until next time, I am out.